Hi, and welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. So how good is Nikon's 40mm 2.0 Z mount lens? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. So why would I buy this lens? I have the 24 to 70 2.8, and it's a fantastic lens. I love it, but it's really heavy. So I thought this would be a great lens for street photography and to pair with the 24 to 200 for travel photography. Gives me a little bit more speed, actually over 2 full stops more at 40 millimeters. And so I thought it would be a great addition. It only weighs 6 ounces or 170 grams, takes 52 millimeter filters, which I have a lot of since I'm still using some old manual focus AI and pre-AI Nikon lenses on my Z8. So I have a ton of filters, even a lens shade. Most Nikon Z mount lenses come with a lens shade. This does not, but I have an HN3, which is used on several of the manual focus Nikon F mount lenses, and it works perfectly on this lens. 52 millimeter thread, and it screws right in. Okay, and I recommend using a shade with any lens to cut down on flare and also to offer some protection to the front of the lens. Now, this shade is no longer made. However, I looked on the B&H website and Velo makes one. I believe it's made out of aluminum, and it sells for $10. So you can't go wrong there. And again, always use a lens shade. Now this lens only has one control, just this focus ring here, which by default is a focus ring, and it can be programmed for ISO, for exposure compensation, or for aperture. Now some will say this lens is made of plastic, that's why it's so light. And that's true, it is, but it seems very well made, and I have no problem with the plastic. Even the lens mount is plastic, but I see no issues with it. Years ago I had a Canon EF 50mm 1.8 that also had a plastic mount, and that lens held up well. This lens is not weather sealed. It does not have the rubber gasket at the back, but Nikon says that it is dust and drip resistant. Now this lens sells for under $300. Now I got this one refurbished direct from Nikon for a little under $200. So I think it was a real bargain. It's one of the cheapest of the Z mount lenses. Now this lens has a minimum focus distance of 11.4 inches from the focal plane, and at its minimum focus distance it will cover an image just over 7 inches wide. So it's not a macro lens, but you could of course add extension tubes to it that will get you even closer. It has a 9-blade aperture, internal focus, which is great, so the lens does not extend as you focus. Also the front element does not turn, so it would work great with polarizing filters. And it's 6 elements in 4 groups. By the way, the focus is really smooth on this lens, really nice. It feels like an old manual focus lens. So how does it perform? Now I read some test reports on this lens comparing it to the 35 1.8 S Z mount lens, which sells for about $850, and also comparing it to the 50mm 1.8 Z mount lens, which is a little bit over $600. At the wider apertures, the 50-1.8 and the 35-1.8 perform better. But once you get past 2.8, f4, 5.6 and beyond, this lens holds up pretty well. Now I've used it recently at a family gathering and also on a brief vacation to the New Jersey shore, and I was very impressed with the performance of this lens, even wide open. Now at closer distances, wide open, yeah, it is a little soft. Of course, depth of field also is very narrow. I'm very impressed with this lens. It's a great walk-around lens. It's a great street photography lens. It's nearly silent autofocus. Of course, it's very compact and light. No trouble carrying this lens all day long. And I'm looking forward to combining it with a 24 to 200 f4 to 6.3 Nikon Z mount, and another very lightweight lens. That, along with this, for a travel combination, I think is great. And mostly I would use the 24 to 200, but in low light situations, I would be happy to switch to this lens. So no, it isn't as sharp as those other lenses wide open. Now, I didn't compare it to my 24 to 70 2.8 at 40 millimeters, and I would guess that the 24 to 70 is probably a little bit sharper at 2.8. This lens gives me a stop more speed, so that could be beneficial in certain situations. Doesn't have built-in vibration reduction, but you really don't need it because the camera does. The Z8 does, the Z6, 7, and other Nikon mirrorless cameras. So what about this sharpness thing? What about this sharpness thing wide open? If you're going to be shooting a lot wide open, yeah, the other lenses are going to be better, but how much sharpness do you really need? I think we are so caught up with the sharpness. Actually, dating back to when I first got interested in photography 50 years ago, sharpness was always very important to me. I would read the test reports in Modern Photography and Popular Photography magazines, and if I was thinking of buying a lens, I would compare lenses and see which one was the sharpest. And that's nice, but do you always need that sharpness? I think it really depends on what the final use of that image is. Are you just going to put it on the web? Are you going to view it on your computer? Are you going to make prints? And if you're going to make prints, are you going to make big prints? You know, in smaller prints, 4x6, 5x7, even 8x10, I don't think in a lot of cases you're going to see that increase in sharpness that you may get with a more expensive lens. So, very happy with this lens. Actually, I'm pleasantly surprised. It was inexpensive. Like I said, I paid just under $200 for it, so I figured, well, give it a shot. You know, especially for travel, it could be really nice. But I'm very impressed with it. So I highly recommend this lens if you're looking to save some money over the cost of either the 35-1.8 or the 50-1.8. It's a nice focal length right in between. Okay, so why don't we go over and look at some pictures. Okay, these are all shot with the Z8, and these first couple were at 2.8. On this one, the focus was on the right eye. This is a pretty close, I would say it was about 4 feet away. This shot also at 2.8. Focus was on the young lady with the glasses, and this was just across from a dining room table. So again, it was fairly close. I think the sharpness is really good at 2.8. This one here was at 5.6. As you can see, a lot of light coming from behind. And it holds up really well. Like I said previously, I keep saying it, but I'm really impressed with such an inexpensive lens. This one here was at 3.2, as was this one. And the one here with the dog also at 3.2, and this next one that I wanted to shoot wide open outside, it was kind of bright, it was a little overexposed, and you could see the very, very shallow depth of field, even, you know, with the 40mm lens at f2. That's f2 again outside, and here's a shot at 5.6. These next shots were taken on this short vacation to the Jersey Shore. This one was at F11 of the State Police building in North Wildwood. And this is of my son at F2 inside one of the amusement parks. And you know, I think this works fine at f2. I guess if you're going to go real big, you want to go with a sharper lens. The one of the Pirate was at f4. Here's another one at f2. Good contrast, good sharpness. And here's one at f11. There's, I don't even see much distortion. Now I know there's distortion correction automatically applied. So I suppose with that off, you would see some distortion. This one was at f10, as was this next one of the Ferris wheel. Another thing I really like with this lens is the focus ring. I mentioned the focus ring previously, but it's rubberized. It actually feels better than the focus ring on my 85-1.8, which kind of has a plastic slippery feel to it. This one was a 2.8. And you can really see the sharpness here at f8. Edge to edge, this lens is very sharp at f8. Now this last image here of my niece, it was very dark. This was at the Jersey Shore. I was shooting at 3200 ISO at 2.8. She was moving around a lot. I tried to use as fast as shutter speed as I could, so I was at 1/100th of a second, but I was underexposed and it was noisy, and I used denoise in Lightroom, and it completely got rid of the noise and really didn't affect sharpness much. I really like denoise. So in conclusion, I am really happy with this lens, especially at the price I paid. And even if you had to pay full price for a new one, which is just under $300, I think it's a great deal. So I'd like to hear your comments if you have this lens, if you've also have maybe the 50-1.8 or the 35-1.8, and you've compared them. Let me know what you think, but I'm very happy with it. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I usually come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. And look for my report on the 24-200, the f4 to 6.3 Z mount. Also very light for its range, and it's another lens that I'm very pleased with. So again, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.